Breaking news out of the 2026 Winter Olympics. Lindsey Vonn has been airlifted off the mountain after a crash during downhill competition, a frightening moment made even more serious by the fact that she entered the Games already competing with a torn ACL suffered before the Olympics began. That detail changes everything. Lindsey Vonn was not racing at full strength. She was racing through pain, instability, and risk that most athletes would never consider accepting, let alone on the most dangerous stage in alpine skiing. Downhill is unforgiving even when your body is 100%. At Olympic speeds with a compromised knee, the margin for error disappears entirely. According to race officials, Vaughn lost control after making contact with a gate and then landing a jump on the upper portion of the course. The combination of that contact, the jump landing, and difficult conditions proved disastrous. Visibility was low, snow conditions were variable, and the course demanded absolute precision. After the gate contact, Vaughn was unable to regain balance as she touched down, going down hard and prompting an immediate medical response. Olympic medical teams reached her quickly, stabilizing her on the course before making the decision to airlift her to a nearby medical facility for further evaluation. The choice to use a helicopter underscores the seriousness of the incident. Air evacuation is typically reserved for situations where there is concern about potential trauma and where minimizing movement and time is critical. Specific details about her injuries have not yet been released, but officials have confirmed that Vaughn was conscious during the initial response. At this stage, the priority is medical assessment, imaging, and ensuring her safety before any public diagnosis is shared. To understand why this moment has sent shockwaves through the Olympic and skiing communities, you have to understand who Lindsey Vonn is and what she represents. Lindsey Vonn is not just an Olympic skier, she is one of the defining figures in the history of alpine skiing. Her career reshaped how women's speed events are viewed, marketed, and respected. She brought mainstream attention to a sport that often lives on the edges of the sports world outside Olympic cycles. From the beginning, Vaughn was known for fearlessness. She gravitated toward downhill and super G, disciplines that reward commitment and punish hesitation. Over the course of her career, she amassed one of the most decorated resumes in World Cup history, collecting dozens of victories across multiple disciplines and earning Olympic medals that cemented her place among the sport's greats. But her legacy was never just about winning, it was about returning. Vaughn's career was defined by injury as much as achievement. Torn ligaments, broken bones, surgeries, and long rehabilitations became recurring chapters. Again and again, she fought her way back to the start gate when logic suggested she shouldn't. Each comeback reinforced her reputation as one of the toughest competitors the sport has ever seen. That history is what makes this crash so heavy. She was already pushing the limits of what was medically reasonable by competing with a torn ACL. Downhill skiing requires complete trust in your knees. They absorb landings, stabilize turns, and hold your line at speeds that feel closer to flight than running. Racing downhill with a compromised knee is not just brave, it is extraordinarily dangerous, and yet she chose to do it. That choice reflects who Lindsey Vonn has always been, a competitor who refuses to let circumstance define her boundaries, someone who understands risk intimately and still chooses to confront it, someone whose relationship with fear has always been negotiation rather than avoidance. The crash occurred in one of the most technically demanding sections of the course. Gate contact at downhill speeds leaves almost no margin for recovery, especially when followed immediately by a jump landing. Even for fully healthy athletes, that sequence is perilous. With a torn ACL, the challenge becomes exponentially greater. Medical teams responded immediately, and Vaughn was attended to by Olympic medical staff before being transported off the mountain. At this time, the full extent of her injuries remains unknown, and officials have been careful not to speculate before evaluations are complete. As news spread, the reaction was immediate and emotional. Fellow athletes, many of whom grew up watching Vaughn race, expressed concern and support. Teammates and competitors alike acknowledged not just her talent, but her willingness to take on challenges most would never attempt. Fans around the world shared memories of her most iconic runs, her resilience, and her influence on the sport. This isn't just concern for an athlete, it's concern for someone who helped define an era. Lindsey Vonn's presence at the Olympics has always carried weight. When she races, the event feels bigger, the stakes feel higher. Her name alone draws attention beyond the core skiing audience. She made alpine skiing matter to people who didn't grow up watching it. That's why this moment resonates beyond the crash itself. It raises questions about limits, sacrifice, and the cost of greatness. It forces a confrontation with the reality that elite sport often asks athletes to choose between longevity and legacy, between safety and opportunity. Vaughn has always chosen opportunity. At this stage, there is no confirmed timeline for recovery, no official statement about the severity of the injuries sustained in the crash, and no indication yet of what this means for the rest of her Olympic participation. Those answers will come later once doctors have completed their assessments and Vaughn herself is ready to speak. For now, what matters is perspective. Lindsey Vohn's legacy is already secure. It does not depend on one more race, one more medal, or one more finish line. It is built on years of excellence, resilience, and courage in a sport that demands everything from those who dare to race at its limits. This crash, painful as it is, does not diminish that legacy. If anything, it underscores the extraordinary risks she has always been willing to take in pursuit of competition at the highest level. As the skiing world waits for updates, the focus remains on her health, her recovery, and her well being. The medals, the standings, and the results all fade in comparison to that. Lindsey Vonn has always been defined by strength, but strength does not mean invulnerability. It means showing up again and again, even when the cost is high. At the 2026 Olympics, she showed up with a torn ACL, raced anyway, made contact with a gate, lost control on a jump landing, and paid a steep price. The hope now is simple that she receives the care she needs, that recovery is possible, and that the courage she has shown throughout her career is met with the support she deserves in this moment. This is not just an Olympic story, it is a reminder of what elite competition demands and of the thin line between bravery and danger that athletes like Lindsey Vonn walk every time they step into the gate.